D-Lake creates.
If you're not learning, you're dying. All facts, zero lies. You might say, but, the content marketing space is so crowded. How do I find out about the latest and greatest new marketing trends? Well, find out the answer to that and get great tips on revolutionizing your content marketing on this episode of Digital Ninjas and D-Lake Media.
Hey, I'm Darren Lake, and welcome to this podcast series collaboration between Digital Ninjas, D-Lake Creative, and Podpaste. We're on a mission to supercharge your brand, company, or organization and help you change the world through digital strategy, training, and insights. Each episode, we answer questions and talk about one specific idea to help you market and run your business better. And we do that by making them easy to digest, short, and concise, because we've all got a business to run.
What is this series about?
And it's actually a panel discussion that I ended up being a part of that was really awesome. And I was joined by Natalie Rafa, who is the founder and CEO of SplashUp, which is an e-commerce software company. Also Jensen Gleer, who is a growth hacker extraordinaire, absolute wizard. And Brendan Hill, who's another content creation wizard. And he also is a venture capitalist investor. And then obviously myself, I was a part of it. Darren Lake, D-Lake Creates. I do a running fitness brand. So what will you learn in this episode? Learning by doing, understanding your platform and the best way to do it, the power of non-marketing content to help inspire you to do your marketing content, how and why you should content stack starting from the podcast, and much more. Let's get into it.
I wanted to move the conversation to marketing educational resources. So it's great because I always can come to you three in your specific areas for new marketing knowledge, and I can always find out what's working on the front line. But what other marketing resources? Who do you guys learn from? Any specific communities or sites?
You're gonna laugh, but I don't know how this might come across, but I love Twitter. I think there's so much good content there. It's underrated.
The first Australian to love Twitter that I've ever met.
I don't tweet. I'm more of like these lurkers on the outside usually. But it's such a good place to get short form content on the things that you want and the things that you like. And marketing is big, like you can go niche and follow like an SEO blog with some guru, or you can go like really, wide. But Twitter is one thing that I love. I've also love if you're sort of like, depending on what your goal is, if you want to learn the basics, then something like getting certified like Google, there's lots of things around like SEO and like analytics and understanding that. So it depends on what you really want to learn. And if you want to sort of like go niche, then there's sort of like different ways that you can learn. You can do courses, or you can even subscribe to like newsletters. There's a really good one called Irene or something like that. I can send it to you later. But it's a vast place, and for me, it's like going like the DIY sort of approach of being all across like different things, and also learning by doing.
Yeah, I agree. There's like the fundamentals that you need. Such as, understanding each ad platform. Most like social media platforms will have their own education process for understanding how to utilize it and get the most out of it. Facebook, Google, everything else. But I think for more the nuanced stuff, you want to look at additional marketing micro-influencers, and you'll find those on TikTok. You'll find I'm very adamant about TikTok because you've got to look at what's the next fastest growing social media platform and how do you take advantage of that platform's actual growth. And at the moment, TikTok's on the rise. It's going to be on the rise for quite some time. Every other major platform's following it with short form content. So going with the trend is the best way to go. For additional resources, there's a myriad of stuff. For your long tail stuff, I'd look at medium.com, because normally you have like professionals that are writing long form blog type content. Substack has a number of different bits and pieces that could be great, but realistically, just search via hashtag, jump onto TikTok and start watching.
Yep. We'll put a link to your TikTok channel, Jensen, in the show notes as well. Some great short form content on there.
I'd say it's personal, and again, I consume things differently. I realize that most people are saying the same stuff, and as far as like new trends and new, everyone's gonna be reporting on the same thing. So I follow, I think I like newsletters. I love newsletters. Even though I am a podcaster, I have a podcast
production company. I'm an audio guy. I actually don't listen to podcasts that much. I'm very particular. One, because my ear space, all my, just it's all being taken up because I'm making stuff, and very particular. And I also sometimes just don't want to learn. I just want to be motivated and influenced by Disney Marvel movies. So Marvel, not really Disney, but and then sometimes I'll apply the story concept. So I actually look to other places to get inspiration and then learn how to be a better marketer or a better storyteller, a better creator. I think it's more like frameworks. I guess I am given the framework right now. Subscribe to 2, maybe 3 in whatever platform you like your content, your educational content. So again, I like newsletters. The only marketing podcast I listen to is Marketing School because the format is borderline genius. And even though the quality is not really where I'd like it as far as like the production quality, their actual content quality is good. Those are 2 different things. It's just a Marketing School by Neil Patel and Eric Sue. And they just, in 5 to 7 minutes, they just give you value. Like, bam, bam. It's just value on top of value. And it's just like, here's a bunch of experience that we have and knowledge. Take it for free. Run with it. I'd say that's probably it. And, blogs are kind of dying. Like, no one's really subscribing. You don't get, I used to love the RSS feeds and, you get the blog, but because of podcasts, because of short form content, because of Medium, because of LinkedIn, most blogs are now on all of these platforms and publishers. So yeah, you just need to follow a couple and you'll start seeing the general trends and watch, they're all saying this over here. Cool, implement it. If you love one, stay with that one. You don't have to listen to every single one.
Actually, this is a little subject change. In regards to sort of creating content, I think it's paramount to maybe take an approach like you're creating content like a comedian. You're going to have jokes that are amazing. You're going to have jokes that are fucking terrible. So most people get a bit scared about what they put out there, that it's like, it's not good enough. It's not polished enough. It needs this and this and this. Someone's going to hate it, blah, 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 blah. Like with everything, never enter the comment section. Don't worry about your haters. Just put it out there and base it on engagement. Good or bad engagement, as long as you're getting that exposure, and be willing to try new pieces of content, whether it's, generating content using AI, whether it's generating content that's polished or unpolished or whatever, or different styles, you know what I mean? Like, throw something out there, try an animation, just see what sticks and don't be afraid to do it, because that's the whole approach. It's experimentation.
And it's hard for everyone. Like, I was attending an event where they're really large brands, and you'd think like on the outside, they're probably just sipping tea all day because they don't have to worry about their audience engagement because they're that big. But they're like really stressed on the inside. They're like, we don't know what content would work. We don't know like if this engagement's going to like be high enough or not. And so like, if you're an SME, like, don't feel like, I haven't figured that out yet. Everyone has the same sort of problem, and even like the big guys, they're constantly thinking about, how do I do this? How do I do that? And it takes a lot of creativity. It takes a lot of persistence. And I have a lot of respect for people who constantly push out content like on TikTok, because it's video and it takes a lot of effort. And so I'm impressed by the amount of engagement there is, like creators that are shipping content. But like, yeah, I think it's definitely a hard game. I would be curious to see how that evolves from there. Will TikTok always be a thing? Video, is that like a short-term thing that we're going to see, or what's next? Like, this is where it's like, that's where it gets spicy.
What's next?
Okay, we're talking about what's next when it comes to...
Oh, hold on. Before you talk about what's next, because I want to stay on this. It's kind of it's just a random tip that I've realized with my brand, how I can scale and automate things. So go back to the whole thesis of all of this, which is, how to use automation tools. What I do, because I have long form content and I'm actually good at it, whether it's a long blog post or a podcast, usually, 5-10 minute, that's when you get in a long form territory. So YouTube videos are perfect. If you're sitting on that and you create that, you most likely now have segments in there. And now you have multiple pieces of short form content that can go out in so many different formats. Obviously short video. So if you recorded a video, you recorded a podcast, you now have multiple short videos. So I think I have my personal podcast. I've gotten it down to about 10 to 20 minutes now per episode, very Marketing School style. And within that, especially if we do a listicle, top 8 things to run your best 5K, blah, 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 that type of stuff. now I have minimum 8 pieces of short form content, plus, a little side rant that we do, a little story. And then there might be an infographic in there. And there also is going to be obviously quotes. So this is Gary Vee's 68 pieces, content stacking or pillars. So just as far as automating, if you record it once and you already done the pre-production, all you got to do is edit it and make sure you're thinking about future content, and you technically have scaled. You don't have to sit there and go, I need to think of a quote and I need to think of, an infographic. So that's one cool hack that I am very grateful my super analytical, obsessive, compulsive, process-driven brain does very well, which is chop things up. But think about in the beginning that I'm going to chop it up later.
I think I would love to read a blog article on like how you do that. I mean, like, how much time does this take up? During how long does it take you to do all of this? Because like, let's say you're you're selling candles, or like you're a plumber, like how do you then adjust like this sort of chopping different sort of content and adjusting it to what you need and how much time you can dedicate? Because obviously it takes a lot of time to even think about the stages. Like, do you have a particular sort of like, I don't know, tips on how one can be consistent and continue building up on those habits?
I'll do a quick version because this is a episode in its own self, and I will definitely put this out. It seems like there's interest in it. The pre-production or the ideation, and like basically how long I spent figuring out doing the brief for this panel discussion, that's where, if you're going to spend the most amount of time, do it there. And you'll have an idea of what it needs to be chopped up into. You probably, or whoever was there helping you do that, should be doing the editing of the content. So not saying like, if you're not an audio editor or video editor, give that to an editor to do like the actual editing of it. I'm talking about like the editorial creative editing, where you go through it, maybe go through the show notes of your podcast. You're trying to figure out what's the points of this blog post or the video. YouTube now has the segments of where you can click through, which is great because it breaks up into little pieces. Then you've already done that list in the beginning in the pre-production phase. You then are just looking for that at the end. And it gets faster. The iterations, it's like anything. I've gotten so much faster. And then you can, once you figure out, you do it well once, then you can 5-10x that up by bringing in, again, a video editor. You can bring in someone to do that content editorial edit. Obviously, podcast editing, you can have someone do the infographics. So I timed it all from beginning to end. And I think a podcast episode takes me anywhere from like 7 to 9 hours if I do everything myself, plus all the promotional materials, plus all the, the email newsletters and all that stuff. And now I've got it down to about 2 to 3 hours. And that's me actually hitting record and recording it. I edit it myself because I'm an audio editor. So I'm a producer. I'm really quick with that tool, but I give the video editor all the video stuff. I have all these other people on my team helping me out with all the other itty bitty stuff that took the other 5-6 hours. So that's a quick one. Sorry to derail. I know you wanted to talk about the future. Do you want to talk about the future?
Let's talk about the future.
All right.
Actually, back to that, like, if you are sort of like a plumber or whatnot, generally speaking, content around education of tips is going to be your best friend. So like, you're a hairdresser, this is how I do this style, showcasing, if you do like cosmetic tattoos, okay, this is my particular technique. A plumber, this is me on a job site. This is the job that we're doing today. Even just sort of like ad hoc content like that is perfect. You don't always have to overplan it. It's great to plan it if you have the time, but if you have limited resources, ad hoc is just on point. You know what I mean? You got to think like, what's the best I can do with what I've got?
And, that's the exact opposite of what I'm doing. I really like the pre-production phase. So I love the researching and I love the planning. Some people hate it. Some people are just like, a guy that I know, he wakes up and he just posts whatever he can. And that works for him. So, my way is a certain way. It allows me to have more content later, though. And then there's no stress later. I've got 60 pieces of content that I'm sitting on that I'll spread out over the course of 3 to 6 months. And also, I'm not rehashing stuff, I ran out of stuff for this month. Let me rehash from last month. I think I rehash my content, which is repost maybe every 9 to 12 months. So I've got that much of a back catalog, and I'm being as comprehensive as possible. So it's like, it's anxiety and stress and work now for less anxiety and stress later. Whereas, maybe if you're a hairdresser or whatever, you're just posting, you might have that like stress, but you might like that. I don't like that. So everyone's different.
And yeah,
It's so interesting because it's kind of like a Venn diagram in terms of like coming up with ideas. You've got like the why we do it, how we do it, and who we are. And if you sort of like take these three sort of angles and map out different sort of ideas around each sort of bracket, you come up with so many ideas around what we can do. Like if you're a plumber, like why we're doing it, it could be like talking about, the story, or like, the motivation, or like, the story of how plumbing even started. Like I'm pretty sure many people would tune into that. But if it's sort of like, how, or, how do we do it? It's sort of like, about tips and educational process. I think like one of the frameworks that I like to go by is like, the how, the what, and the who. And, that sort of like gets my brain just flowing with ideas around what we can do.
All right, thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it. You know the drill. Make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, depending on wherever app you're on, whether you're listening to this as a podcast or you're watching it on YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you get this. It really helps us get the word out. And if you're feeling this and you've gotten some value, please make sure you share this with someone that you know. And we'll see you on the next episode.
D-Lake creates